I'm Sunny Graham, and I'm one of your worship associates this morning, and I've been asked to share some of my memories and thoughts about motherhood. I was born in 1940, and I was an only child. We had a huge garden, and we had animals. Every spring, my dad would go and bring home a baby piglet. We'd feed it all summer, and you know where it went every fall. We had a milk cow, we had chickens, we had rabbits, and we had a tomcat named Buzzard. And also you can figure out why we named him Buzzard. I was afraid of Buzzard, but I was also afraid of babies. Growing up, I remember thinking, what do you do with those little things? They were unnerving. I didn't know quite what they would do next. There was a time when the neighbor, Mrs. Parr, asked my mom if I would watch her little baby, Susie, while she went to the store. And I agreed to do that under one condition. I didn't go in the house. So they set me up on the front porch. The door was open, and I sat there and looked through the screen at Susie and prayed that she didn't cry. Makes me wonder what the deal was with Mrs. Parr, doesn't it? And then there was a time I was in high school, and I was at my boyfriend's house, and his niece was there, and his niece was just learning to crawl. And to my horror, she was coming straight toward me. I thought, please, baby, please don't come this way. Well, anyone could have told you at that time I was not a very good candidate for motherhood. During the 50s and 60s, there was an expectation for us girls, and it was carved in stone. Once you finished high school, you went to college for at least 2 years, or you went to work as a secretary. You met Prince Charming, you married Prince Charming. Statistically, you had 2.5 babies, and you got a house in the suburbs. I was lucky enough to have 2 boys, Todd and Jeff. And Jeff's here this morning. Luckily, I had an instinct I didn't know I had or I possessed, and it kicked in. When I first held one of those little babies, I was absolutely mesmerized. The whole world disappeared. It was just the 2 of us, and we were encompassed by this wonderful, soft light. It was more wonderful than I could have imagined. And I knew I had a purpose, an important purpose. It was to love, to raise, and protect my children. And as they grew and needed me less, I found other things that interested me, new purposes, new goals, but none filled me with the joy that I felt being a mother. So, the 60s, I'm a mom, and when I look back, I'm surprised any have survived that as parents. It was almost a bleak time when you think about it. Labor was like an illness, you know, and they wheeled you on this cold cart into this surgery room. And when you came out, no one knew what you'd done in there. But there was strict feeding schedules every 4 hours on the dot. Not a crumb before 4 hours was up. Well, the baby, you know what the baby would do, start crying at 3 hours, cry himself to sleep, and then what do? But you didn't question these things. That's what I'm stunned at right now, because I don't think that would be happening now. No pacifiers, absolutely no pacifiers. Potty trained at a year. And the suburbs. The suburbs created isolation, I think, for a lot of young mothers. We were away from really any community. We were living in homes. You stayed in the backyard. You had a patio in the backyard. It was fenced. You didn't even see your neighbors. Unlike my mom and grandma, on summer evenings, they would sit out on their front porch. It would get cool. The breeze would cool them off. Neighbors would come by, and they'd all just remark on how hot it had been that day. But there was real community. Now, the real bleak thing about being a parent in the 60s was Spam. Do any of you know what Spam is? Spam was this horrible meat, condensed meat, that came in this tin can, and it was Sunday dinner, a special Sunday dinner with Spam. I took it out of the can, I put it on a baking dish, I put cloves in the top, and that was Sunday dinner. One day I was talking to one of my really good friends, and we were talking about being moms and exhausted and cranky, and she said, well, I think you should read a book that was just given to me and was written by Dr. Benjamin Spock. And he was an American pediatrician, and the book was Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care. It was written back in 1946, but it transformed parenting. He encouraged you to be flexible, to show affection, to trust your parental instincts. It freed me up in ways that I could not imagine. Now, Spock was also famous for something other than his book. He demonstrated in the 1968 anti-war activists and was convicted and for aiding draft dodgers. Well, I always say that my guys, Todd and Jeff, survived me. Today, they're productive, loving adults, and what more could you really ask for? I have become confident and more relaxed as a mother and had the luxury of staying home. I don't know that all young women mothers have that luxury today. Maybe some would like to be staying home and just can't. Those that have careers, go for it. You have to be happy within yourself as a woman. Finally, I had a car, my own car, and we were free of suburbia. Lloyd Center was brand new, and I threw Todd and Jeff in the back seat, no seat belts, no, just flopping around in the back seat. And Lloyd Center was brand new. And off we went to Lloyd Center. It was October, and we purchased orange construction paper and black construction paper and scissors and glue. And we stopped at McDonald's on the way home for lunch, and then home to cut out jack-o'-lanterns and black cats and plaster them all over the windows. I think for all of you, there are probably really simple memories like that just stay with you forever. I can remember Todd, the oldest one, bursting in the door one day after school and saying, "Mom, I got a home run in PE today." And I can still hear Jeff in the backyard dribbling his basketball for hours and hours and hours. And then I'd hear it go, shh, in, and more dribbling. It just still touches my heart. And Jeff's here today. And they grew, of course, and it was amazing that time when their voices first started crackling, and beginning to deepen. It was like, wow, those are my guys. Their hands would grow, and their feet would grow, and they grow bigger than the rest of their bodies, And it was just such a joy to watch. They came to need me less and less. And they were placed by their peers, and off they went to college. And I was the kind of mom that was really happy for them. I don't remember thinking, I just wish you, wouldn't get old and be doing these things and leave me. It was a gift. And today, I have 6 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. Every Mother's Day, memories of my mother, Elsie Kathleen Ryan, come flooding in, and my heart is so happy. Mom and I were everything to each other. Now, as you can tell by her maiden name, Ryan, she was Irish. She was Irish through and through. And her humor was that self-deprecating Irish humor. On St. Patrick's Day, she would tell me stories of the little folk. But with the Irish experience, there were common stories of poverty and husbands who took the paycheck on Friday evening and drank it up before they even got home. And so there was kind of a thread of sadness running through the women I knew. So about 10 years ago, I had this notion that I wanted to go to Ireland, and I wish Mom could have gone with me. And I wanted to go to somehow create a healing, a generational healing for the women in my life. So my mom had a string of pearls, the only really nice piece of jewelry she had, and I took a photo of that and stuck it in my suitcase, and my plan was to leave it somewhere, and I didn't know where in Ireland. She needed to be there. Well, it was monasteries and churches and priests, and we were not religious at all. So I knew that that wasn't going to be, I hadn't found the place yet. The last day I was in Dublin and standing in front of Trinity College, and some people had overheard me say that I was from Portland. And they said, "Oh, we have a bookstore just like Powell's in Portland. We loved it." And I thought, that's where the photo needs to go. My mother did not graduate from the 8th grade. She was an avid reader. She read all the classics to me, and the bookstore was it. So I went across the street and found the section of Irish authors and flipped a photo in a book. Seanachie is a Gaelic word for storyteller. And if I were a Seanachie, I would tell you more of her story. But what I will tell you as a Seanachie, that on the day she passed, a beautiful white bird swooped down and grabbed her spirit and her soul and carried it to the east, the place of transformation and healing. My mother taught me all I needed to know. She taught me to laugh often. She taught me the power of forgiveness and to love unconditionally. So, thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Laura Bartko. In the culture where I grew up, moms were pretty much completely responsible for all the household tasks and kid raising. Whether or not my mom was working outside the home, my dad would come home from his job, grab a bag of Lay's potato chips, go downstairs, put his feet up and watch TV, leaving my mom to do the dinner, cleaning, and taking care of kids. And even as a kid, I was like, this is a bum deal. I want no part of this. So I very purposely stayed unattached and independent, skeptical of the traps of marriage and motherhood. I graduated college and bolted. I joined Peace Corps Turkmenistan, and then traveled and lived out of the country for all my 20s with pretty much no permanent attachments. Around 30, I moved back here to the US to go to grad school at OHSU to become a nurse midwife. I dated a guy who, on our very first time hanging out, showed up at my house with a pile of pre-cut vegetables. He brought oils and spices and a wok and proceeded to make me this really delicious dinner. Spoiler alert, he's now my husband. He's right there. So one time, we were helping his horse collector mom, who's also here, Happy Mother's Day, Phyllis. She was unloading some 20 tons of hay on her farm. These hay bales are 80 pounds each. I don't have that kind of upper body strength. So my job was to be on top of the truck, and I just roll them off the side, and then the stronger people would stack them up. We were pretty far down the stack when I saw this teeny tiny pink something. It was this little wriggly thing, and its eyes were still closed, and it didn't have any hair. We couldn't even really tell what species it was. And everybody was just like, oh, Laura, let nature take its course, leave it in the grass, the cats are gonna take care of it. And I was like, or what if I keep it warm and safe? And I know it's probably gonna die, but I'd like to just feel loved for its little short life. So I took it home, and I fed it milk from this little crease in my palm, and it would lap it up. And I'm like, okay. So I did some research. It turns out little rodent babies have to eat every 2 hours, day and night. So I set a lot of alarms. Here's a fun fact. It turns out little rodent moms actually lick their baby's butt to get them to poop and eat it so that it doesn't get the nest all stinky and attract predators. So I wasn't gonna go that far, but I got a little warm, wet cotton ball, and I would rub its butt so it would be able to poop. This went on for a while, and it didn't die. Its eyes opened. And then it got all these little spiky things that turned into hairs. So I kept going. There's a lot. So again, I'm in grad school. I'd be gone at class all day long. So I brought it with me in this little clear box on the bus. And we'd be sitting in pathophysiology class with this little mouse like running up and down my arm, like burrow in my hair. It was actually really fun. This is a side note. One time I actually met Al Gore. This was during the Inconvenient Truth Tour. And I actually shook his hand while I was holding my mouse behind me in my other hand. It was like, nice to meet you. It was so much work. But I was surprised to find I didn't mind it. In fact, I actually felt honored by it. This tiny creature had absolute trust in me. And it didn't need to be earned or established. It was just, I was all it knew. It was built in. My heart had been pretty hardened. This was way before we started talking about hyper-independence as a trauma response. That came later, but it was pretty true for me. I felt tough. I thought I was free, but I didn't form any meaningful connections or attachments in my striving to stay free. But caring for this tiny thing who needed me so much did a wild softening on my heart. Layers of shielding dropped, and I felt a completely new for me tenderness. And that's how I decided maybe I did want kids. If I was willing to do this for some randomly found unknown species, maybe I was ready to do it for my own offspring. So a year or two later, I moved out to the guy's farm, and we had our first kid, who's also here. We got the whole posse. It was really hard as I had no community to speak of and was incredibly isolated and lonely. But I felt such an intense surge of protectiveness and primal love for this kid. It softened my heart even more. For so long, I'd been striving for independence and non-attachment. But as my heart expanded in whole new dimensions, and open chambers I didn't even realize were in there, I realized motherhood brought meaning, a deep connection and purpose I didn't even know was missing. It was beautiful, and I was happy even in the midst of the challenges. Over the years, we had 2 more absolutely beautiful and incredible kids, one of whom lit a chalice today. This time with more support as I'd gotten established in this new community. Both as a midwife and a mom, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have community and support as moms. We were never meant to do this alone. I absolutely love my role as these kids' mom, and I also love my role as a nurse midwife and gynecologist. I feel incredibly blessed to have found sweet, sweet balance with my work and motherhood. We're really busy, but in a good way. My husband still does most of the cooking, and we clean as a family team. Turns out there's lots of good ways to be a mom. Happy Mother's Day.
Good morning. I'm Sonja, also one of your worship associates today. These words are not my own. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The first time I read Khalil Gibran's poem, I read it as a daughter. I felt a sense of relief, a validation of my need to be seen as an individual. Inspired by that autonomy, I found my niche and purpose in birth. As a labor nurse and then nurse midwife, I've guided families through the threshold of birth. I've been honored to witness a delicate transition to parenthood. I'd coach my clients that we don't have control in pregnancy, birth, or parenting, at least not the way we think we do. I thought I was the guide. But there is a profound difference between the knowledge I held as a clinician and the truth I now hold as a mother. I have never eaten my own words more than I have this past year. My own experience has been a masterclass in humility. I have a bit of a confession. I'll be honest, I didn't always want to be a mom or know that I'd want to be a mother. But I'm pretty stubborn, and once I made up my mind, and the biological clock was ticking, I realized the universe had other plans for my timeline. I'll spare all the details, but after a difficult road with fertility, we finally found out we were pregnant the very morning of our specialist consultation. I'd actually had a glass of wine the night before because the pregnancy test was negative the night before. But anyway, the pregnancy was a series of lessons in letting go. From early bleeding to a rare diagnosis at 32 weeks, we envisioned our envisioned birth center birth began to shift. I spent weeks desperately trying to get the baby to turn head down. I wore jingle bells on my lower belly. I did inversions on my breaks at work, flipped in the pool, played music to the belly, Josh read to the belly, and we have the carpet burns to prove how much moxibustion we used. If you know, you know. But after 4 official versions and with 2 epidurals, we decided it was time to meet this baby. On March 4th, 2025, I birthed my daughter, Penelope Faye. I realized quickly that you cannot truly understand the great becoming of motherhood until you are standing in the center of its fire. We thought the birth was the end of the trial, but it was just the beginning. It was a very tender time. We had just lost our yellow lab Marshall only a week before she was born. Then came the breastfeeding struggles with tongue tie and Penn's excessive weight loss. 8 days postpartum, I was hit with the ultimate sucker punch, readmission for severe preeclampsia. I remember sitting in that hospital bed, telling my husband I simply didn't want to be alive anymore. Three weeks later, we suddenly lost our 8-year-old chocolate lab to a stroke. We were shattered. And just as we had finally gotten our heads above water, I was laid off 6 weeks after returning to work, my dream job. I look back at the old me, and I hardly recognize her. I honor her, but she was ignorant. She didn't know that letting go isn't a one-time event in a birth plan. It is a daily, sometimes hourly spiritual practice. Gibran describes parents as the bow. Now that Penelope is showing her own bright, stubborn spirit, I feel a fierce compulsion to honor her individuality. I want to be a vessel for her that doesn't weigh her down with the expectations I once felt. In doing so, I see my own mother differently. I see the bending she had to do. I have a new compassion for how she handled the mantle of motherhood, however flawed that bow was or is. I realize now she was likely just as terrified as I am. In our UU tradition, we celebrate the living tradition. I see myself as the bridge. I want a different relationship for my daughter, one where safety is unconditional. I'm still terrified I'll mess it all up. But perhaps the lesson I learned in becoming a mother is the one I need for life. We have to let go of the perfect to make room for the real. I am honored to be the bridge, to be a student of my daughter, and to be part of this messy unfolding story with you, with all of you. Sorry, that was a little bit of a Debbie Downer, but it's real. Thank you all.
In the words of Reverend Marcia, Spirit of life and love, today we celebrate mothers and our own complicated relationship with mothers. We honor those women and men who raised us. We rejoice when they did it well and forgive those times when we didn't get the mothering we needed or wanted. We celebrate the children who made us mothers. We acknowledge and honor those who chose not to mother, expending energy into other areas of the world. We sit with the pain of those who wished to be mother, but weren't able to for whatever reason. We honor whose hearts have been broken by the loss of a child, and we admire the resiliency of those who try again. We celebrate their mothering. For those who raise children through birth or fostering or adoption, we celebrate your mothering. For those of you in the trenches of bedtime struggles and food-stained clothing and teaching right from wrong, we honor you. For those of you facing the joys and struggles of differentiating tweens and teenagers, we honor you. For those of you whose children are grown and still hovering, not yet fully who they will become, we recognize you. For those of you whose children are fully launched, we celebrate your achievements, no matter where your children may be. For those of you who mother children in complicated ways, through step-parenting and shared co-parenting with exes, nurturing other people's children and nurturing grandchildren, we see the complications occasionally present and honor those deep moments of sweetness you are blessed with. For those of you missing your own mothers today, we mourn with you and acknowledge your loss. For those of you wishing you had been mothered better today, we see your heartache. For those of you out there who are blessed with good moms, we celebrate with you and pledge our support to your families. May it ever be so. Amen. You know when you're waiting in a long line at a public restroom? Perhaps at the Moda Center or any other large venue. The line is long and everyone is generally annoyed that they have to wait. Well, when I was a kid, this is the moment when my mom would walk past the line up to the stalls and take a look under to be sure there were a set of feet in each that were accounted for. She oftentimes found one stall that was empty and would announce to the people in line, "Let's get things moving." This I think of as a life philosophy. Why trust the person ahead of you to know what's best? It was a small act that I saw my mom do in multiple settings, in multiple ways. not always just in public restrooms. But it taught me that questioning is important, that listening to your own instincts is a practice that has to be reinforced over and over again to test it as a reliable theory. I'm certain my mom wasn't doing any of this intentionally to teach me something. She simply lived this way, and it rubbed off. When I wanted to join the Peace Corps as a young adult, I was told by many people they don't accept type 1 diabetics. I just kept looking under another bathroom stall and found a door that would open. 2 pregnancies with multiple high-risk factors, 2 months bed rest, warnings that maybe 1 child is enough. I found another stall that would open. Moving to Uganda with 2 young children, no health insurance, no familiar faces to greet us. I just thought, there's got to be a way that no one has thought of yet. And that's my mom right there in the red sweater. I've said this a few times. My parents are Lutheran. They're still around. They still go to church here. When I was growing up, we typically had extra kids in our house, day and night. My mom had a soft spot for kids growing up with single moms, busy parents, and moms who worked night shifts. I think my mom wanted to make sure no kid got left behind. And she was the kind of mom who wanted other moms to be okay too. She raised me to pay attention to stragglers and invite them in so they could belong somewhere. When I was in middle school, a friend of my mom's asked if she could talk her daughter, me, into befriending her daughter who was struggling socially. That friend is, to this day, one of my closest and dearest. My mom also liked to joke about how I could make friends with a rock. Maybe this was a skill I developed through practice, through watching my own mom look out for the underdogs and be sure to notice them. She took care of our neighbor's son with Down syndrome since he was very young, then picked up the slack for that neighbor when she went on to have twins and a toddler with Downs. I watched. This is how we live. When I was 16, I spent nearly every afternoon home from school holding, bathing, swaddling, and soothing those twin babies. Great baby experience, and great birth control, too. Brené Brown wrote, "Belonging is the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval, which are not only hollow substitutes for belonging, but often barriers to it." When I became a mother, I knew that I needed my children to feel a sense of belonging. I think it might be my strongest core value about being a parent. The thought of a child being left out makes me feel something akin to physical pain. I want my daughters to know that they belong no matter what. I want them to know there is this place, an intangible one, that always includes them. This is a place where they're loved for no good reason, just because they're my children. I have definitely gotten myself into some uncomfortable situations. I refer to them as mama bear moments. When one of my daughters appears to have been left out of a social situation, some of the few relationships I've really botched are with mothers whose child may have been less than kind to my children. I'm not proud of myself, but I really don't know if I can change this part of me. I will always hold a grudge, I fear, because how could anyone not want to be kind to my children? It just seems impossible, right? My mom had a couple of lines she used with me quite regularly that I did not enjoy growing up. Love you, Mom. The first was, snap out of it. And the second was, don't psychoanalyze me. As a sensitive, connected, and emotional kiddo, these responses were confusing and made me wonder how to respond. As an adult, I now understand what she meant. Sometimes we just have to push past difficult moments and move forward to deal with the problem in front of us. I didn't always know how to snap out of it, but I learned that sometimes I just had to. This has actually helped me cope with difficult and unfixable situations, to pause and find perspective if I'm perseverating on something that's out of my control. So Mom, thanks for that too. As for don't psychoanalyze me, this is how I learned that not everyone wants me to try to read their minds. I learned at a young age that I could read a room well, and I could tune into other people's emotions, and almost felt them myself. But not everyone wants their feelings to be seen in this way. I had a friend as a young adult who told me it made her uncomfortable that I reflected back to her what I thought she was feeling. I learned with time, with practice, great therapy, that I can be present for people without trying to fix their feelings or emotional experience. Who knew that the origin of this perspective started with my mom always trying to tell me not to psychoanalyze her? It's hard to predict how my daughters will absorb and integrate their experiences of me as their mother. The good, the bad, the ugly, all result in small ways that shape them as people and in relationships. It's a lot of pressure sometimes, being a mother, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.